Hey folks, so welcome back to All Things Neurodivergent. Today I'm going to talk about executive dysfunction and laziness. So first, what is executive dysfunction? Well, it's a neurological challenge in organizing, initiating, prioritizing, and completing tasks. So it is not only within neurodivergence that it can be found. Executive dysfunction can be found in kind of many areas. So depression, trauma, anxiety. Kind of the difference is one is based in kind of neurological difference, and another one is environmental, where it's the system is overwhelmed, and that kind of creates executive dysfunction. Although that can also happen when it's kind of neurologically based as well. So one of the things is it's really about executive functioning and not a lack of willpower. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, the brain processes executive functioning in the prefrontal cortex. So that's what is responsible for planning, motivation, emotional control. And these are all things that folks with ADHD and often autism really struggle with. So what are some kind of like the key executive functions that are affected? One, task initiation, getting started even when you want to. I can't tell you the number of times I've wanted to do something and I just get locked and I can't. I'm so overwhelmed. Another one is working memory, holding steps or instructions in your head. The typical going to the grocery store. Oh, I've only got to pick up 3 things. I'll be fine. I don't have to write it down. Wrong. There's been times I've had to go to the store and it's like, I only need 2 things. And I will either forget one or I will get the wrong thing. Organization. So tracking time, materials, responsibilities. And that can look like so many different things. Emotional regulation. So managing frustration and overwhelm, going from 0 to 60, like that. The inability to recognize kind of when you've hit your when you've gone past your kind of no-go points, when the ability to think logically about things is gone, the ability to take initiative and think like, hey, maybe I should kind of back off. You've crossed that. Cognitive flexibility. So changing gears when something changes. So task switching is a huge one. The ability to kind of pivot and move to something else, especially if it's a special interest or if it is you're hyper focused on something, or perseveration. God, perseveration's brutal. If I'm really locked in on something, somebody asks me to do something, I can't just do it and switch back. Or if we have plans and then somebody changes them, I get really overwhelmed. The really odd thing is with ADHD, though, is that if I'm the one that initiates it, no problem. I can turn on a dime. But if somebody else does it, I'm so overwhelmed. And another one is self-monitoring. So recognizing when your focus drifts or priorities shift. This is a really big one, is that we often have trouble recognizing the priorities of things. So you'll make a task list and you'll just go down the list, not recognizing that, is this really what needs to be done in this moment? Well, it's on the list, so I'm just going to do it. So we're not great at prioritizing often. So what does executive dysfunction feel like? As I said before, kind of knowing what needs to be done, but feeling stuck or paralyzed, not knowing where to get started, or knowing what needs to get done and wanting to do it, but really struggling to get kind of past the inertia. And there's a few reasons for that. One being overwhelmed, feeling like this is going to take way longer than you have. Feeling like I don't know what to do or where to start. Feeling like the task is just so big, and that you can't, that there's no started. Staring at a task for hours, just screaming at yourself, do it, or conversely trying to get out of doing something. Like I'll be on my phone, I'll be scrolling, or I'll be playing like a mindless video game, and I know I have other work to do, and I want to do it, but I'm so locked in, and I'm sitting there, and outwardly it just looks like I'm scrolling. Inwardly, I am screaming at myself to get off the phone, to put down the game. I'll say in my brain, it's like, okay, one more game. When this is finished, I'm going to get off. Why am I playing another game? And I've been stuck in that loop for hours. Overwhelm leading to avoidance. So, it's too much. I'll do it later. Then you feel guilt. Then you feel shame. And it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Forgetting tasks, even after writing them down or telling somebody about them. That can be really hard because sometimes people will think that means that you don't care, which is not true at all. Because they're like, well, if it was important, you would remember. And it's like, well, that's not really, not really what ADHD, does. Constantly underestimating how long something will take, or overestimating. Really not great with the time management in terms of how long something will take. So I like to do what's called rule of 3. So however long that I think something is going to take me, I times it by 3. So if I think it's going to take me 5 minutes, I will give myself 15. Because even if I'm able to get it done in 10 minutes, if I said, well, if this is going to take 5, then it actually takes 10, I'll get really down on myself, and like it kind of creates a backload. Whereas if I say, okay, well, I think this will take me 5 minutes, but I'm going to give myself 15, and I do it in 10, then what that means is that I've actually built in a buffer. So I have an extra 5 minutes. So it helps me feel like not so pressured. As I said before, right, we're really, really bad at prioritizing. So hyperfixating on unimportant details while the main task awaits. Or for those of you who are fantasy fans, doing side quests, where you're not doing the main quest. It's go off on these little mini adventures and things that don't really need to be done. That could be frustrating. Or perseveration, which I mentioned before, where you get locked in on something, not even necessarily something that you want to do, although you can do that too, but where it's just like, oh, I have to figure this out. One time I was trying to figure like a video thing out, and I got locked in on it for 6 hours. I figured it out. The thing is, if I had been able to put it aside, do something else, I probably could have come back to it in a couple of hours the next day and figured it out in 20, 30 minutes. Instead, I got so locked in that I did it for 6 hours. That was a fun day. So here's the thing. Why isn't this laziness? Because it seems like it's laziness. But laziness implies choice. It's apathy, indifference, disinterest. I cannot tell you the number of times I've wanted to do something, or I've known that I needed to do something, and I can't. Executive dysfunction is involuntary. Your brain is offline, so to speak, when you need it the most. The problem isn't motivation. It's activation. It's starting it. We often think that motivation is what gets us to do things, and it's not. And there was a study about this, and I know I hate citing a study without citing the actual relevant study. ADHD, my brain is Swiss cheese. But what it said was that motivation is not what gets you to do something. It's what keeps you doing something. So it's if you can break that barrier, that can be really, really powerful. But it's just trying to do that. And part of it is how do you break that barrier? What does that look like? Because that is something that is really, really hard. Because when our reward system, our dopamine, doesn't light up, or we don't get a lot, tasks can often feel physically impossible to start. And if you've never experienced that, it's hard to explain it in a way that doesn't sound like laziness. And honestly, external judgment, from others, from society, hell, internal judgment that we put on ourselves, honestly makes it worse. Because stress further inhibits executive functioning, right? The more stressed, the more overwhelmed we are, the harder it is to actually do things. And I think that's something that people don't realize, is that when you beat yourself up, you're just making it worse. And so even though it looks like it's a choice, sometimes the best thing that you can do is put it down, walk away, go for a walk, go to the gym, call somebody, help play a game, but put a time limit on it, and then come back, or even come back to it the next day. Because if I spend all day mentally beating myself up for being a lazy piece of shit, and then the next day I'm exhausted and I'm like, why do I still not have the motivation? Why do I still not have the energy to do this? I didn't do anything. You did. You were mentally beating yourself up. That takes energy. So rather than kind of giving into the shame and the guilt and the remorse, acknowledge that our brains work differently, and maybe there's something going on that you weren't able to do in that moment. And so allow yourself to take the time that you need, and then come back to it later. And you find that, honestly, you probably have a much better time doing it. So what are some common myths? Well, if you really wanted to do it, you would. God, that is such bullshit. Desire does not equate ability. I wish it did. God, do I wish it did. There's so many times I want to do something. I really do. And I just can't. Another one, you just need more discipline. Will is a muscle like anything else. And so you can only exercise your muscles for so long before they give out. It's the same thing with somebody who has executive functioning issues. Can it overcome the executive dysfunction? Sometimes, for a limited amount of times. But the more you do it, the more you rely on it. Yes, you can build muscle over time. You can build willpower over time. But there's always a limit. And if you have somebody that has, like, say, a chronic illness that's trying to go to the gym and work out, versus somebody that doesn't have that chronic illness, and you're like, well, why can't you operate like that person does? Well, because they don't have a chronic illness. So their body has much more capacity than yours would. It's not a lack of willpower. You can try and train and do, and you can get better for you, but you will never match the person that doesn't have the chronic illness. It's the same thing with us. Saying, well, why can't you just do this, as if you're neurotypical? Because you're not. Your brain doesn't work like that. Everyone procrastinates sometimes. Yeah, correct. And that's the thing with really all of these kind of ADHD traits, a lot of autistic traits. A lot of these are things that people struggle with regularly, but chronic and impairing daily life. Everybody needs to go pee. But if you're going 30 times a day, that is outside the clinical norm. And, so it's not about, well, everybody struggles with this. It's about, well, what is the severity? What is the duration? What is the impact on your life? Because, yeah, everybody gets sad. Not everybody has clinical depression. And my personal favorite, you're just lazy. No. We are some of the hardest working people you will ever experience. We are struggling and fighting with our brains constantly. Our brain is going a million miles a minute. We're overloaded on a daily basis. We're not lazy. We are exceptionally hardworking. We just aren't fit to, we're not built to fit within neurotypical norms in society. And when we try and fit into that, it's a lot. It's hard, right? So what are some of the emotional impacts? Often really deep shame for knowing better but not doing better. It's the classic, like, do what I say, not what I do. Well, for us, we often know what to do. It's implementation. Knowledge is not the problem. Oftentimes it's implementing it, right? Or implementing it consistently, which is something that we struggle with. Comparing yourself to others who seem to manage effortlessly, especially if you were late diagnosed and you spent most of your life thinking that you're neurotypical, and you've been struggling. You're like, why can't I do things that everybody else seems to be doing relatively easily? It's not the same, right? We often avoid asking for help, or we often hide our struggles, or don't want to talk about them out of a fear of judgment. I've had people say, like, I don't want to disclose at work because I'm afraid of what's going to happen. I've had people who have disclosed at work or to family and friends, and they've been ridiculed for it. They've been passed up for promotions. Hell, some of them have lost their jobs. So, I mean, those fears are very, very real, very, very valid. Unfortunately, I wish they weren't, but they are. And we often experience very low self-esteem, reinforced by years of misunderstanding from others. Misunderstanding ourselves, right? Trying to operate in a way that we're not meant to is very difficult. So, what are some coping and support strategies? So again, these are things that can work for some people, may not work for others. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean that you're hopeless, but just something to think about. Body doubling. So working with somebody to stay engaged, whether that be in person or virtually. Some people virtually doesn't work. Some people can work. Either working on the same thing or just having a presence in the room with you. Chunking tasks, so break them into kind of micro steps with visible wins. There's some really good apps out there. I really like Goblin.tools is pretty good for that, for kind of breaking things down. You look at something, you're like, I'm overwhelmed, I don't know what to do. Take it and it'll kind of break it down. And you're like, oh, I do blah, 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 blah. So something like that can be really good. Externalizing memory, so planners, whiteboards, timers, visual cues, using your phone, having an assistant, if you're in a position to have something like that, setting up reminders on your phone, things like that. Dopamine pairing. So combining things that need to be done, but don't give you a whole lot of dopamine with things that do. So one of the things would be like, while I'm making dinner or doing dishes or doing laundry, cleaning, I often like to listen to music or podcast. I like to move around when I'm trying to do work. If I'm really, really struggling and I'm not really getting a whole lot done, sometimes it can be really helpful for me to get up and just go for a walk, even a 20, 30-minute walk, hell, even a 10, 15-minute walk, just to kind of help clear the cobwebs and give me some dopamine, and I come back and I'm able to work, right? And we may think like, oh, well, no, that's wasting time. It's not, because you're just sitting there anyways, right? A big one is compassionate reframing, right? It's okay that I'm struggling. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for accommodations. I'm not broken. I'm not damaged. My brain works in a different way, and that's okay. So another thing is like using transitions. So countdowns, environmental cues. If you do need to task switch or somebody needs you to task switch, instead of asking like, hey, can you come do this? It's like, hey, when you're done with this, can you come talk to me? Or, hey, can you, in like 5 minutes, can you come in and do this thing? Right? Therapy. ADHD therapy, coaching, things like that can be really helpful. So, kind of to wrap up, struggling with executive functioning is not a moral failure. It is a neurobiological mismatch with modern expectations. When you understand how your brain works, you can try and work with it and not against it. It's not always going to be successful. It's still going to be a struggle, but not as much. And hopefully with a compassionate reframing, you're not beating yourself up about it. And this is a huge one. And this is for everyone, not just neurodivergence, but productivity is not proof of worth. We live in a capitalist hellscape that has convinced us that we have to be productive, we have to be doing things in order to have value in our society. We don't. Our value lies in our intrinsic humanity and who we are. Surviving with a neurodivergent brain in a neurotypical world is already hard work. Cut yourself some slack. You're doing the best that you can. Can you do better? Probably. We all can. Does that mean that there's anything wrong with you? No. So thank you for joining, and I hope you found this informative. If you did, please like, subscribe, follow, and I got stuff on all my socials, so I would love to see you in there making comments. Watch.